For as long as I can remember, the wilderness has been my refuge. Life here isn't for everyone, but I've grown to love its rugged beauty and solitude. My days blur together, filled with chopping wood, fishing, and watching the weather. It's a simple life, but it suits me, especially after the noise and chaos I left behind. Here, amidst the mountains and the sea, I found a peace that had long eluded me. I moved to this remote Alaskan territory a couple of years ago and mostly keep to myself. The town is small, just a handful of buildings along the shore. I only go there when necessary, mainly for supplies. With winter approaching, a trip to town became unavoidable. Months had passed since my last visit. The settlement, home to about 300 people, has a couple of gas stations, a grocery store that doubles as a hardware shop, and a small flight service. I needed to stock up before winter fully set in. As I tied up my boat this morning, I unexpectedly slipped and fell into the icy water. Amber was there to help with the lines. She's about 19 or 20 and always on the dock when I come to town. While she's friendly, I keep my distance. She's much younger than me, and I respect her family. It's obvious she has a crush on me, but she's just too young for me to consider. As she was tying up the bowline, a reckless boater sped into the dock area. They came in fast and slammed into reverse, sending a huge wake across the water. Amber, with her back turned, was thrown into the water as the wave hit the dock. Without hesitation, I dove in after her. The cold shock nearly took my breath away, but I managed to swim to her. I glanced up to see the boaters laughing. Anger surged through me, but I focused on getting Amber back. I grabbed her under the arms and dragged her to the dock. Another person helped pull her up, and I used the cleat to haul myself out. The water was around 38 degrees, and we were both shivering uncontrollably. We needed to get warm immediately. The best option was the shower on my cabin cruiser, which was nearby and had a full water tank. Go get Lacey. Tell her Amber fell into the water. She's at my boat and will be in the shower warming up. She'll need a change of clothes. You got it, JW. I watched Ben take off down the dock. For a man of 65, he moved like he was 20. I was impressed. I managed to stand up, shivering uncontrollably, then bent down to pick up Amber, who was curled up and shaking. I had little time before I'd be too weak to move her. I carried her onto my boat, started the generator, and rushed to the lower berth. I quickly turned on the shower and exposed off Amber's wet clothes, pushing her under the warm water. She leaned against the shower wall as I exposed down to my boxers and joined her, rubbing her arms, back, and legs to get her blood circulating. I was grateful for the on-demand water heater I'd installed. It wasn't burning hot, but it was warm enough. The tight shower stall made it difficult, but I kept rubbing Amber's body to warm her up, feeling my own temperature rise slightly too. She had been in the water for about 5 to 8 minutes, and I had been in for almost as long. The cold had chilled me to the bone, but after 10 minutes, Amber started to come around. I took a chance and stepped out to heat up water on the stove. We needed something warm to drink. Dripping wet in my boxers, I struggled to light the stove with my shaking hands. Just then, Lacey came in behind me as I nearly whined in frustration. Whoa, JW, you're nearly unclothed. Where's Amber? In the shower with hot water running. Need to make hot chocolate. You get back in the shower. I'll handle the water. Tom will be here soon. What happened? Later. Get in the shower now. I didn't think about how it looked, being nearly unclothed in the shower with Amber, their daughter. I was just too cold to care. Amber was still shivering with her back to me, so I kept rubbing her to warm her up. Your mom's outside and your dad will be here soon. Damn, move, rub. We need to warm up. I'm warm now. This is a dream come true for me. You saved my life, JW. I just pulled you out of a bad situation. You didn't think twice. You saved my life. Yeah, and almost froze doing it. Move your arms and legs. Your mom's making hot chocolate. A few minutes later, I heard Tom, her father, come aboard. I knew it was time to get out of the shower and into dry clothes. Then it hit me. Their daughter was unclothed. What would they think? I stepped out first, wrapping a towel around Amber. Her mom handed her clothes as I dried off quickly and pulled on jeans and a sweater. Lacey handed me a cup of steaming hot chocolate. Here you go, JW. There's a bit of Irish in it. Thought you both could use it. Thanks, Lacey. How's Amber? Oh, she's fine. Just had her first shower with a man she thinks a lot of, and one she's now seen most of, Lacey said dryly. I know. I blushed. It was the fastest way to warm us up. I didn't mean anything. Hey, JW, we know. We'd have done the same. You do what you need to survive. That water is freezing. Tom nodded. How long were you in? About 8 minutes for Amber, 6 for you? Felt like hours, I admitted. With how low your body fat is, I'm not surprised you were so cold. You both were close to hypothermia. Lacey gave Amber a once-over. Amber blushed and looked away. Yeah, I'm just glad we were close to the dock when it happened. I knew JW would save me. He's that kind of man, Amber said, her voice full of admiration. It worried me a bit. What happened? Ben mentioned that big cruiser came in fast and its wave knocked Amber into the water. He said you dove in without a second thought. I can't thank you enough, JW. You saved my baby's life, Lacey said, talking quickly, sensing the awkwardness in the air. Yeah, I jumped in because I saw she was struggling to breathe. That cold water can cause muscle spasms that are hard to control. She's lucky she didn't swallow a lot of water. Whatever you did, you saved her life. I can never thank you enough, Lacey replied, looking serious. Well, we should thank that girl on the boat for our cold bath. She came in way too fast, and the wake was at least 4 feet high, I said, letting my anger show. Probably that actress. She's been here with her crew scouting locations for a movie. She's a terror, from what I hear, Tom added, sounding disgusted. After some more talking, Tom, Lacey, and Amber left. Before stepping off the boat, Amber hugged me tightly and gave me a hot kiss on the lips. I managed to pull away before things got more awkward in front of her parents. As she spun around and left, I looked at Tom and Lacey, who were laughing. Looks like you've got something to think about, JW. Better watch out. You might get hitched, Tom teased loudly. Amber, not far down the dock, blushed and turned away. Ben stayed behind, chatting about my heroics while I tidied up. I needed to head to the store for supplies, the whole reason I was in town. Amber's reaction troubled me. It was the first time she'd tried to kiss me, and she did it well. What were her parents thinking? Later, I headed to the general store to pick up what I needed. I overheard talk about the Hollywood group that had flown up to experience Alaska. I rolled my eyes. A few weeks here wouldn't teach them what living here was really like. Too many people were showing up each year. I missed the days when there were fewer people, and everyone minded their own business. I've become a bit of a hermit. I'm 35, living off my land in the Alaskan wilds. Made enough money in the 90s to set up here, so now I mostly live off the land and sell things online to cover some expenses. I enjoy the simple life. A few years back, my fiancée left me months before our wedding. Looking back, I realize I dodged a bullet. Since then, I've decided I don't need or want a relationship, at least for now. As I approached the store counter, I overheard some chatter. She's here to film a movie set in Alaska, one man said. Flying out at the end of the week in her fancy jet from Ketchikan. JW, you should meet her. She's a looker and about your age. Maybe she's searching for a real man, Jacob teased. Cut it out, Jacob. I'm not interested in any woman, especially a movie star. She almost got me eliminated today, I snapped. Why so cranky? You just took a quick swim, someone else chimed in. Why don't you try that swim and tell me how nice the water is, I shot back. And stop trying to set me up, I'm fine. Relax, JW, Jacob laughed. But Emma thinks you could use a woman around. Yeah, right. Like I need that headache, I muttered. Emma walked in just then. What's this about, JW? You do need a woman, trust me. Please stop trying to find me one. I don't want or need it. I was lucky when the last one left, I replied irritably. Jacob changed the topic. Got any more of those cedar picnic tables ready? Yeah, I've got 4. I'll drop them off in a few weeks, or maybe Paul can bring them if he stops by. Paul's crabbing again? Emma asked. Thought his wife would have stopped that. He's providing for his family. She should appreciate that, I defended. Women prefer their men alive, Emma shot back. Not everyone wants to be tied down, I replied. Blame the one who left me, not all women. She was never right for you, Emma said dryly. Maybe, but I'm less angry now, I admitted. After a round of laughter at my expense, I settled my bill. It's $374.98, Jacob said. I paid cash, grabbed my supplies, and headed to my boat. With these provisions, I'd be set for winter. I had a knack for reading nature's signs, and I felt a harsh winter was coming. I ran back to the store to get my mail. Inside, a crowd blocked the walkway. I need some lotion. My skin's drying out. You probably don't have anything good, but I'll take whatever until I can get something flown in, an annoyed voice said. Yes, ma'am, I'll get it for you, Jacob replied, practically stumbling over himself. I chuckled as I squeezed past her. What's so funny? She snapped. Him, I pointed to Jacob. I've never seen him move that fast. He never helps me like that. You must be royalty. If anyone else talked to him like you did, they'd be thrown out. You find strange things amusing, she huffed. Learn some manners and how to handle a boat. You nearly eliminated someone today, I shot back. Her bodyguards moved in, but I warned, back off or you'll get hurt. They tried to intimidate me, but I faced worse. You're the guy who jumped in, right? She asked. Yeah, that water's deadly. Hypothermia sets in fast. You're overreacting. You seem fine, she said. Took 45 minutes to warm up after just 8 minutes in that water. You almost eliminated her and me, I retorted. Maybe you should take a dip and see for yourself. Grabbing my mail, I pushed past. I can't stand people who think a short visit means they understand my world. You're a rude idiot, she called after me. Yeah, you have a nice day too, I replied, holding back from saying worse as Emma entered. This actress reminded me too much of my ex-fiancé, spoiled and self-centered. As I walked out, I overheard her asking Jacob about me. I missed his response, but I knew he'd smooth things over. He ran a business, after all. Her attitude irritated me, but I couldn't deny she was the most beautiful woman I'd seen in years. Not that it mattered. Beauty doesn't excuse recklessness. Most women in town were either married or too young. No single women my age, and I had no interest in a married one. Besides, I was already dealing with keeping Amber at a distance. I realized Amber had grown into a beautiful woman, which shook me since I'd always seen her as just a kid. Heading back to the cabin, I chuckled, picturing Jacob rushing to fill the actress's order. He acted like she was special, but to me, she seemed snobbish, just looking for publicity. Back at the cabin, I unpacked and started dinner. As the stew warmed on the stove, I looked out to the beach and spotted some driftwood to collect in the morning. Some of it could be used for making tables, and the rest would become firewood or material for home projects. My workshop is powered by a generator, and the cabin sits on a hill with a stunning view of the ocean and mountains. I own 50 acres, debt-free, so my expenses are minimal. Over the next few days, I gathered driftwood from the beach and offshore, towing it with my D6 cat. I cut it into planks and firewood, enough to keep warm through winter and make more picnic tables. My shop is decorated with glass floats I find while beachcombing. Most are green, but sometimes I find blue, yellow, or even red ones. Locals admire the setup, but I just see it as adding a bit of color. A few days later, I was on the mountain collecting branches for chair making. The weather was awful, but you can't wait for perfect conditions here. During lunch, I saw a white streak with black smoke in the sky. At first, I thought it was a meteor, but it was a small jet with a burning engine. The jet came in fast at a bad angle. The pilot tried to pull up, but the left wing hit the water, spinning and breaking apart with each wave. I knew it would end up on the spit, a dangerous spot. If it crossed, it'd be lost along with anyone on board. I raced to the beach, jumped on my four-wheeler, and sped to the spit. Next to the burning wreck, I grabbed my fire extinguisher. It was a 10-pound unit, nowhere near enough to put out the blaze, but enough to buy time. I aimed the nozzle at the smoking fuselage and emptied it, hoping to get inside and help whoever was still there. I saw a limp figure in a seat, released the seatbelt, and dragged them away. I went back 6 more times until the flames blocked my path. The pilots were likely dead, given the crushed cockpit. I tried to get closer, but was forced back by the heat. The bodies I pulled out were the movie star and her group. She was the first one I had rescued, though I hadn't realized it at the time. One of the 5 men I saved started coughing. His cough was more like a before-end-of-life rattle, with blood coming from his mouth, ears, and nose. Weakly, he grabbed my shirt. "Tell my wife. I'm sorry. I love her." Then he went still. He was gone. I checked the others. Another man had likely died before I pulled him out. Both bodyguards were dead. The 4th man was badly injured. His gray face worried me. I covered him with my raincoat. The second person I pulled out was a young woman, part of the actress's group. Her arm was clearly broken. She needed medical help, but the worsening weather made it doubtful the Coast Guard could reach us. The actress, the first one I rescued, had some cuts and a head wound, but seemed mostly okay. I hoped she could help. "Are you hurt?" I asked her, concerned. "My arm and back are sore, but I think I'm okay," she responded, wincing. "How's Sam? The guy with glasses, chinos, and loafers?" She hesitated, her voice breaking. "He didn't make it. He asked me to tell his wife he loved her." I felt a pit in my stomach. "Oh no. What about the others? Janice, Paul, Jim? The pilots?" "Rest," she said quietly, trying to steady herself. "Janice's arm is broken. Paul is in bad shape. Jim, the pilots, and your bodyguards? They're gone." I could barely speak. "No, you need to get help. Paul is my only lifeline." "I can't move him," she replied urgently. "It might make things worse. Go sit with him and Janice. I'll make calls and grab supplies. I'll be back in 15 minutes. Understand?" She nodded, dazed. I watched as she walked over to Paul and Janice. None of them were dressed for the cold. They probably thought they'd be in LA by lunchtime. I hurried back to the cabin and radioed the Coast Guard. The response came quickly, but filled me with dread. We can't fly out until at least the day after tomorrow. 75-knot winds and zero visibility. The cutter's grounded too. You're on your own, JW. I trusted the chief. If he said they couldn't come, it was bad. But I was desperate. Can't you send anyone? The man won't make it without help. The chief's voice was grim. What about the others? Pilots are dead, I answered flatly. 4 others dead. 1 woman with a broken arm, another with cuts. The man's in bad shape. His pupils are uneven. Could be a concussion or worse. I'm sorry, JW. We can't risk it. I'll have the surgeon talk you through some things. I'm not a doctor, I protested, feeling overwhelmed. I barely keep myself out of trouble here. You can do this. The surgeon will guide you and we'll come as soon as we can. I swallowed hard. What should I do? It's getting colder. The doc says to move him carefully with a blanket. I'll try using the trailer's lift bed, I muttered, formulating a plan. Be careful, he warned. Get him inside and near the radio. You might need to set the woman's arm too. Got booze? Yeah, but not for me, right? I joked half-heartedly, trying to lighten the tension. No, for her. Have her drink before you set the arm. Set her arm? I repeated, my voice rising. I'm not trained for this. The doc will guide you, the chief assured me. It'll heal faster if set now. Just relax, you can handle this. I was in shock. 1 minute I was having lunch, the next I was playing doctor. I loaded blankets, pillows, and jackets, then sped back to the wreck. I parked close to Paul to limit movement. The women were by his side, visibly shaken. The actress looked at me, her eyes wide. Did you call emergency? Help is coming, right? I shook my head, trying to keep my voice calm. In this part of Alaska, emergency is you and me. Coast Guard can't come. This is a rare storm. Her face paled. But what about Paul and Janice? I called the Coast Guard, I replied. A doctor will guide us. It's the best we can do. That's not good enough, she cried, her voice breaking. You're not a doctor and I have no training. Listen, I said firmly, trying to keep control. We're all they've got. Help me move Paul. Keep his head aligned. She was frozen for a moment, but I didn't have time to argue. It was getting darker, and we had to act fast. We managed to get Paul back to the cabin, stripped off his wet clothes, and put him in my bed. I had a king-size bed for the women and took the couch. I radioed the chief again, my voice tense. Is the doc available? The injured man's here, barely hanging on. Yeah, the chief replied quickly. Give him the vitals. Temperature, pulse, skin condition. Listen to his heart. Okay, hold on, I said, taking a deep breath before getting to work. Janice, surprisingly calm, gave the vitals. Weak pulse around 40, cold and clammy, swelling on his right side, head wound, weak breathing. Paul's in serious trouble, the doctor said, but we can only wait. He then explained how to set Janice's arm. I was nervous, but Janice made it simple. She took a swig of whiskey and said, You have to do this. It's a simple fracture. You can do it. I've never done this before. You'll be fine. Trust me. Somehow I managed to set her arm without more damage. Splinting went smoothly. When she came to, Janice said, Lucy, let JW check your head. No, I'm fine. Lucy shot me a glare. My arm's broken, so I can't help you. Your cut is still bleeding. Let JW bandage it, Janice insisted. The booze gave Janice some courage, but Lucy shot me a look I couldn't quite decipher. Part superiority, part fear. I didn't want to focus on her right now. There were more urgent injuries to deal with. JW, do something, Janice urged, her voice tense. Lucy's losing blood. Damn it, I muttered under my breath. She'll hate this. She doesn't want me touching her. And how do you even know my name? Jacob and his wife told us, Janice explained. And she doesn't hate you. It's the opposite. I do not, Lucy snapped, glaring at Janice for siding with me. He's an idiot, a dirty bum, I shot back. I'm not a bum. If you weren't so stuck up, never mind, you need help. Or do you want to pass out and have me take care of you when you can't argue about it? Enough, Janice cut in, clearly done with the bickering. Lucy, lie down. JW, get the first aid kit. Lucy reluctantly lay on the couch, still fuming. I grabbed the kit and went to work while Janice hovered nearby, keeping a watchful eye. When I touched Lucy's head, she flinched. Hold still, I said, trying to keep my voice calm. I'm not going to hurt you. Just need to clean and cover the wound. She flinched again, but I focused on being as gentle as possible. The bandage wasn't perfect, but it would do the job. Once I finished, Lucy tried to sit up, but Janice gently pushed her back. "Stay put," Janice ordered softly. "JW will get you a blanket and pillow." "I thought you two would take the king-size bed," I said, glancing between them. "I can carry her in there." Janice shook her head. "No, she needs to rest here. I'll sleep in this chair. You take the bed." "No way," I insisted. "You two take the bed. I'll carry her in so you can both sleep better. It's a king-size, plenty of room. My house, my rules." Later that night, I woke up to find Janice standing over me. She bent down, kissed my forehead, and adjusted the blanket. "You didn't have to do that," I murmured, still half asleep. "What was the kiss for?" "To say thank you," she replied softly. "You saved us." "No, I just helped," I said, brushing it off. "Paul's still not out of the woods, and Lucy's sleeping too hard. You should get some rest. Your arm must be killing you." I took some Tylenol and more whiskey. Hard to sleep with the pain. "Hey, that's good whiskey," I teased. "No, it's not," Janice shot back, smiling faintly. "Bet it cost you about $14. "Maybe," I admitted, grinning. "But that's not the point." "It doesn't matter," she said, her tone more serious now. "What matters is you're not as bad as we thought. You really tried to help us." "Yeah, well, it just means I can't mind my own business." "You're a real pain, you know that," she teased. "I'm sorry, Janice," I said, softening. "It's been a long day. You need to rest. Help might come by morning." She shook her head slightly. "Help is already here, in the form of you." "I'm not much," I muttered. "Trust me, you are," she replied quietly. The next day was quiet, except for the storm raging outside. I called the Coast Guard again, but they still couldn't fly or send the cutter. I made a fire to keep the cabin warm. As I stood by the stove, I heard someone approach from behind. "What are you doing?" Janice asked, her arm still in a sling. "Making breakfast," I replied. "Eggs, bacon, pancakes, and toast?" She raised an eyebrow. "How do you have a toaster out here?" "Generator out back," I explained. "Got a toaster, microwave, TV, even internet." "TV?" she asked, clearly surprised. "Satellite, not cable. I'm not as backwoods as you think." She smiled faintly. "How's your arm? Need more Tylenol?" "I'm okay," I assured her. "Took some earlier. Can I help?" I shook my head. "Just sit and talk. You shouldn't be moving around with that arm." "It's my arm, not my leg," she said a bit stubbornly. "I need to do something. I owe you." "You don't owe me anything," I insisted. "And if you try to help, I'll carry you back to bed." "Sounds like macho Neanderthal talk," a voice chimed in. I turned to see Lucy standing there, arms crossed, looking skeptical. "She's supposed to rest," I said defensively. "I'm not an idiot, despite what you think," Lucy shot back. "Yeah, and you've got a chip on your shoulder about me." "Both of you stop," Janice snapped, irritated. "Lucy, let's go check on Paul. Leave JW to cook." Lucy rolled her eyes. "I'm not hungry. Whatever he cooks would probably eliminate me anyway." "That's not fair, Lucy," Janice said firmly. "You need to apologize." Lucy glanced at me with a mix of contempt and something else. I turned back to the bacon. "It's fine," I muttered. "She doesn't need to apologize." There was a pause before Lucy spoke again, her voice softer. "Yes, I do. I'm sorry, JW." "All right," I replied, trying not to sound smug. Lucy's eyes flashed angrily. "That's it? All right?" she snapped, clearly expecting more. I was caught off guard, but before I could respond, Janice stepped in. "Lucy, stop! He accepted your apology. Let it go." "But what about how he's treated me?" Lucy demanded. Janice sighed. "Come talk to me, Lucy. Leave JW alone." "Fine," Lucy huffed. The two of them left to check on Paul. What they didn't know was that I had been up several times during the night, checking on him. He was hanging on, but I was growing more anxious, hoping the Coast Guard would arrive soon. After breakfast, I went to my shop for some peace and quiet. I didn't realize someone had followed me until I heard the door creak open, a gust of wind nearly sucking the fire out of the stove. "Wow, you've got quite a place here," Lucy said, her tone surprisingly friendly. It unsettled me. "It's how I make my living," I replied, trying to keep things professional. "You made these?" She pointed to my latest table, clearly impressed. "Yeah," I said. "From spruce and cedar I collect from driftwood." She seemed genuinely surprised. "Those ugly logs turn into something this beautiful?" "I cut, dry, and shape them into tables or whatever else," I explained. "What else do you make?" she asked, her curiosity piqued. "Cabinets, bed frames, chairs, mostly for log homes. I answered. You're quite the craftsman, she said, her praise making me blush slightly. I've had some practice, I replied, feeling a bit self-conscious. All by hand? She asked, stepping closer. Mostly, I said, nodding. I have some power tools, but I do a lot of it the old-fashioned way. Amazing, she murmured, reaching out to take my hand. Your hands look rough, yet they feel soft. She traced her fingers along mine, and I felt a sudden stirring inside. I quickly pulled away, my heart racing. I need to check the generator, I muttered, trying to escape the tension. Lucy looked disappointed as I rushed outside, confusion and nerves battling inside me. Why would she be interested in me? I had nothing to offer someone like her. For the rest of the day, she watched me, starting conversations that made me uneasy. I'd find an excuse to leave. Janice seemed amused, laughing at my discomfort. That night, I insisted they take the bed. I settled on the couch. The next morning, the storm raged on. The Coast Guard said they still couldn't fly out. I followed the doctor's advice, but wished they could take these folks off my hands. That morning, both women borrowed my clothes. Janice wore an oversized shirt, while Lucy's borrowed clothes fit better. Lucy stayed close, her usual sharp comments gone, making me more nervous. Later, I secured some logs on the beach. As I struggled with the cables in the rain, a hand appeared to help. It was Lucy. Together, we secured the logs. I was surprised she came out in the nasty weather. It made me rethink my opinion of her. As we walked back, I saw Janice watching, smiling. That night, after dinner, we all sat and talked, mostly about me and my place. Later, I woke up to see a shadow over me. A soft hand touched my face. You're my knight in shining armor, she whispered. I pretended to sleep, thinking about her words. On day 4, I checked the wreckage for salvageable luggage. There was nothing but rags. When I returned, Lucy was folding clothes. Sorry I was gone so long. Your luggage is all charred. Looks like you'll be wearing my t-shirts again tonight. They're comfortable, she teased, giving me a look I couldn't place. Fine, take any shirt you want, I muttered, retreating to the kitchen. While I washed dishes, Janice stood beside me, attempting to help with her one good arm. After realizing she couldn't do much, she simply watched. You know she's falling for you, she said quietly. No, it's just a crush. You put a small group of people together, and it happens. Once this camp is over, she'll move on. She'll find someone more suited to her life back in Hollywood. I know Lucy better than anyone. She's changing, and it's different this time. She's falling for you, JW. Don't hurt her. Me? Hurt her? Once the Coast Guard gets here, this will just be a memory, some adventure she'll romanticize until someone new comes along. You're underestimating her, Janice insisted. She won't forget you. Janice, we haven't dated, kissed, or done anything lovers do. She's just in summer camp mode. Janice laughed. Oh, you're in for a surprise. It'll be interesting when Lucy gets back to Hollywood. You mean when she goes home? No, I mean Hollywood. She thinks of this cabin as home now. Janice, it's been 4 days. There's no way she's in love with me. It's just summer camp syndrome, trust me. That night at dinner, I thought back on our conversation. Maybe my comparison wasn't perfect, but it was close enough. Lucy hung on every word I said, almost embarrassingly so. I'd handled women who thought they were in love with me before, like Amber, so I figured I could handle Lucy too. Later, I woke up to a shadow standing over me. In the dim light, I saw it was Lucy. I pretended to sleep as she softly whispered, I love you, JW. You're my knight in shining armor. Her hand touched my shoulder and her lips brushed my cheek. It took all my will not to react. Even after she left, I felt the warmth of her touch linger. I spent the rest of the night arguing with myself while checking on Paul. I told myself it was just summer camp syndrome, but I kept wondering, what if it's not? By morning, the storm had calmed, and sunlight began breaking through. We had breakfast, and I prepared Paul, knowing the Coast Guard would arrive soon. Half an hour later, we heard the helicopter approaching. I stepped outside, hoping the doctor was on board. He was. The doctor and a medic entered the cabin, quickly hooking up IVs and getting Paul ready for transport. We'll take him and the young lady to Ketchikan, the doctor explained, gesturing to Janice. Then we'll come back for the others. He turned to me. You did a good job, JW. Paul's going to be okay. I'll stay with Lucy for now, Janice said firmly. The doctor hesitated, but eventually nodded in agreement. After the helicopter left, I noticed Lucy staring at me, visibly unsettled. What? I asked, confused by her gaze. Tears welled up in her eyes. You saved our lives, she said softly. I shrugged. Just did what anyone would have done. She shook her head. No, you saved us. They'll be back soon to get you too. You'll be out of here soon. Janice looked at me, her expression full of a newfound understanding. You really did save us, JW. Paul wouldn't have made it without you. And you set my arm like a pro. The doc was on the radio, I replied, trying to downplay it. Yeah, but you did the work, Janice insisted. Fine, I muttered. You're welcome. All of you. Lucy gave me a long look. You really don't like praise, do you? She asked, her voice soft but teasing. I just did what anyone would do, I repeated, feeling uncomfortable. No hero here. It is to us, Lucy said, her tone more serious. Okay. You're welcome, I muttered again, feeling the weight of their gratitude. Lucy let it go, but the look in her eyes told me she wasn't finished with the conversation. Later, the Coast Guard returned to pick up the women. I was relieved. Their presence had been making me increasingly nervous. As Lucy prepared to board, she surprised me by hugging me tightly. Then, before I could react, she kissed me on the lips. I was stunned. What was that for? I asked, still processing the moment. For helping us, she replied with a smile. For saving our lives, and for not being as nice to you as I should have been. You're my knight in shining armor. Could you apologize to the girl who took the swim? I feel bad about that. Sure, I said, still taken aback. Take care of yourself, Lucy. Maybe things will go smoother if you come back. I'll visit when I'm back for filming, she said, looking over her shoulder. If that's okay with you? Of course, I replied, smiling despite myself. The door's always open for you. As the helicopter's sound faded, the place felt different. In 5 days, everything had changed. I realized a few things. Lucy wasn't as bad as I'd thought. I could handle emergencies, and, most troubling, I needed a woman. That last realization hit harder than I wanted to admit. Just those days with Lucy and Janice had changed my mind. The FAA investigators came not long after. They never found the cause of the jet fire. Gradually, life returned to normal. Months passed, but that feeling of needing a woman only grew stronger. I knew I had an issue, but didn't know how to handle it. At Christmas, I got a package from town, gifts from Amber. The delivery guy said she'd asked him to drop them off if he was in the area. It made me start thinking about Amber differently. Now, I had 2 women on my mind. Winter dragged on, but eventually the snow melted and spring arrived. It had been a long, harsh season, but I got a lot done. I finished 25 table sets and some end tables. I decided to take them to town myself, since I hadn't been able to reach Paul to see if he'd made his crabbing trip safely. When I arrived in town, Jacob seemed to be in a mood. Hey, Jacob, how's it going? I greeted him. Pretty busy, he replied. The film crew brought about 100 people, so I've had to double my orders. Oh, they're filming now? I asked, trying to make conversation. Yep, he nodded. That actress has been asking about you. Seems you made quite the impression. Nah, I just helped when they needed it, I said, brushing it off. Not what I heard, Jacob said with a knowing look. Curious, I pressed him. What exactly did you hear? Before he could answer, Emma walked in, and Jacob quickly busied himself with something else. Frustrated, I tried again. What have you been hearing? Nothing. Nothing at all, Jacob said, avoiding eye contact. JW, has Jacob been feeding you stories about the movie, folks? Emma cut in, giving Jacob a playful scold. I'm not sure, I admitted. He mentioned hearing something about last winter, but now he's clammed up. Jacob, you should know better, Emma said, wagging her finger at him. Then she turned to me. That actress has been asking about you, JW. She's really interested. Wants to talk and thank you for the care you gave her. It was nothing, I shrugged, feeling uncomfortable with the attention. It was something to her, Emma countered, and to Paul and Janice too. Paul survived, you know, and he's been asking about you. They all have, especially the actress. She's keen on you. I was just lucky to help, I said, trying to deflect. Couldn't save everyone. But saving Paul meant a lot, Emma said, her voice softening. They'll never forget you. Got a thing for her, JW? She's quite pretty. No, I replied too quickly, feeling a bit embarrassed. Emma raised an eyebrow, clearly seeing through my attempt to deny it. Uh-huh, she said, not buying it. You do like her, and she's interested in you too. Stop, Emma, I said, feeling cornered. Don't go there. JW, you need a woman, Emma insisted, her tone more serious. No man needs a woman, I shot back. Might want one, but need. Priests and monks do fine without. Emma sighed. I won't argue your choices, JW, but you're wrong. You've been angry ever since that woman left you for that doctor. Now you've got a chance with a good woman, and that actress might be the one." "An actress? No way," I scoffed, shaking my head. "She's human, beautiful, well off, and has heart," Emma replied pointedly. "More than I can say for some." I frowned. "I thought you were my friend, Emma. You're not helping." "I am helping, JW, Emma insisted. "This Hollywood gal might be just what you need. It's time to move on." "Yeah, right," I muttered, unconvinced. "Why would she be interested in me? I'm just a hermit. I helped because I was there, that's all." She had no other choice. Emma was smiling, looking over my shoulder. I turned to find Lucy standing behind me. Janice stepped closer to me, causing Lucy to move aside. "So, JW, where's this flight service you mentioned?" Her eyes sparkled with mischief. I knew I'd have to point it out, but not as close as I had with Lucy. My face turned red, and Janice noticed. "JW, that blush says it all. Looks like you just realized you didn't need to get that close to Lucy earlier. Go on, show me where it is." "It's over there," I said quickly, pointing. I could hear Emma, Jacob, and a few others in the background snickering. "You're about 6 feet away from me now, just like when Lucy was standing here. Why did you get so close to her but not to me?" Janice pressed. I stammered, trying to come up with an answer. I wasn't thinking." Janice grinned and softened her tone. "Relax, I'm just teasing." Lucy moved beside me, hooking her arm through mine. I could smell her hair, which made me even more nervous. Janice, still smiling, said, "Maybe we should leave you two lovebirds alone to sort this out." "We're not lovebirds," I snapped, surprised at the harshness in my voice. Lucy looked up at me, her expression unreadable, before stepping back. Janice's smile quickly faded, and she started to apologize. "Sorry, JW, Janice said softly. "Stop, Janice," I replied, shaking my head. "All I was doing was pointing to the flight service." "Oh, really?" Janice teased, her mood shifting. "Yes, really," I said firmly. Janice raised an eyebrow. "Then you weren't about to kiss Lucy?" No," I stammered, feeling cornered. "I was just standing close." "And your heads were inches apart," Janice pressed. "You both know you were about to kiss." "Janice, stop," Lucy interjected, her voice calm but insistent. "JW was just being nice." Janice wasn't convinced. "You two were at each other's throats last time," she reminded us. "Then, when you got back to LA, Lucy, you were complaining nonstop. You even started researching Alaska, specifically JW. You both clearly like each other more than you admit." I shifted uncomfortably, trying to leave the conversation, but Emma's voice cut through, stopping me in my tracks. "JW," Emma said firmly, "you need to explain yourself to this young lady." Trapped, I turned back to Lucy, who was watching me with a mix of fear and hope in her eyes. Lucy." I hesitated, unsure of what to say. I wanted to find the right words, but nothing came. Lucy stepped closer, her gaze locked on mine. "Yes, JW," she asked softly, batting her eyelashes in a way that left me utterly lost. "I'd like it if you came to the cabin this Saturday," I blurted out before I could stop myself. Her face lit up. "I'd love to," she replied quickly. "Janice and Paul have been talking about your place since last fall. We've missed it." "You were only there a few days," I pointed out, feeling awkward. "But you took care of us," Lucy said, her voice softening. "You saved us." "I was just in the right place at the right time," I insisted, trying to downplay it. "And you helped," she continued, stepping even closer. "Yeah, I helped," I muttered, my heart racing. "And I owe you for that," she added, her eyes never leaving mine. "No, you don't," I said, shaking my head. She moved even closer, our faces now inches apart. I could feel her warm breath, and for a moment I didn't want that feeling to end. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're welcome," I replied softly. In that moment, her lips met mine, and without thinking, my arms wrapped around her instinctively. She kissed me passionately, holding on tight, and I found myself kissing her back. Suddenly, I felt a presence beside me. Janice was inches away, grinning. "Hey, you two. My turn next." Blushing, we pulled apart. Janice stepped in, kissed me lightly, then smiled at us both. "I'm hurt. You won't love me like you do the fair Lucy," she said theatrically. "Janice," Lucy said, sounding annoyed. Trying to lighten things up, I said, "Janice is right. We shouldn't have kissed. We don't really know each other that well." "Oh, JW," Janice cut in. "You have a lot to learn about Miss Lucy. She's been digging up info on you all winter." Lucy blushed, looking a bit frightened. "She's entitled to find out whatever she wants about me," I said. "I'm not hiding anything." "Oh, how about your feelings for one particular lady?" Janice shot back. "Janice, you come on strong when you want to," I replied. "You're not ready for how much Lucy is focused on you," Janice continued. "I think you need to be warned." "Janice!" Lucy nearly shouted, on the verge of tears. I felt for her. I was the center of her interest, and it made me blush too. I turned to Lucy. "Look, I think I like you more than a little. I'd like to get to know you better, but I'm just me. What you see is what you get." Emma and Jacob were beaming. I felt like this was all happening too fast and in the wrong place. Backing away, I said, "I'm not one to discuss personal matters in public. If you want to come out, the door's open. Use the flight service if you want to save time. I've got to go." As I walked down the dock, I glanced back. Lucy and Janice were arguing on the porch, while Emma and Jacob stood there smiling, waving at me. They'd never waved at me like that before. I almost missed seeing Amber as I stepped onto my boat. She was coming out of the store. I hadn't seen her inside, so I wondered, where was she during all that? The whole incident felt like grade school. Do you like her? She likes you. I didn't like it then, and I wasn't a fan now. Despite missing Lucy, I hoped she'd get too busy to come back. I didn't want complications, and I could tell being part of her life would be just that. Saturday morning, I heard the float plane approaching. It banked hard, then descended toward my dock. It was Joe himself flying, even though he was in his 70s. I wondered why he took this flight instead of one of his other pilots. As he docked, I grabbed the line and tied it off. Janice stepped out of the plane first, followed by Paul and then Lucy. Lucy looked around nervously until her eyes landed on me. Her face lit up and she started walking toward me. As she got closer, she broke into a run, throwing her arms around me and hugging me tightly. She kissed my cheek, and before I knew it, that kiss turned into a passionate one. Joe, standing nearby, cleared his throat. When should I pick you up tomorrow?" he asked. Janice smiled over at him. 4 in the afternoon will work." "Okay," Joe nodded. "Bringing back any fish or game?" Janice chuckled. "I doubt it. Maybe just Lucy and her big old bear," she teased. "Janice, stop it," Lucy said, stamping her foot in protest. "No, Joe, just us." Joe nodded again, then untied the plane and climbed aboard. "See you all tomorrow. Take care," he called out, waving as the plane taxied out and lifted into the sky. We all stood watching as it banked and headed back. Paul turned to me, offering his hand. "Glad to finally meet you standing up," he said with a grin. "Thanks for saving my life last winter." "You're welcome," I replied, shaking his hand firmly. "Come on up. I'll grab your suitcases, Lucy." Lucy shook her head. "I can carry my own stuff, thanks." Paul interjected, giving Lucy a teasing look. "Let him help, Lucy. You argue more than any woman I know." Lucy blushed slightly, then handed me the larger suitcase without further protest. Janice laughed. "Paul, you should have been up and about back then. You could have quieted them both faster than I ever did." "Janice," Lucy snapped, her frustration clear. "Don't make me forget how long we've been friends." "Oh, relax, Lucy. I'm just teasing," Janice replied, a mischievous smile on her face. Then turning to me, she added, "By the way, mind if I kiss your boyfriend to thank him, like you did?" "He's not my boyfriend," Lucy exclaimed, struggling to keep her composure. "I was just glad to see him, that's all." "Great," Janice said with a grin. "Then you won't mind if I do this." Before Lucy could respond, Janice stepped forward, hugged me tightly, and kissed me on the lips. The kiss lingered longer than I expected. Startled, I let go of the suitcase and hugged her back before gently pulling away. I saw a look in Lucy's eyes that hinted at jealousy. I wondered briefly why, but the moment passed as we headed up the path to my cabin. "You girls can take the big bed. Paul, you get the other bed in there. I'll sleep on the couch." I pointed out the rooms, knowing Lucy and Janice already knew the layout. "We don't want to put you out, JW, Paul said. "I can take the couch." "No, take the bed, Paul. It's no problem. I sleep on the couch most nights anyway." I didn't catch the look Lucy and Janice exchanged. It wasn't until later that I realized how much I'd given away with that statement. Sometimes, what seems innocent reveals more than intended. We spent the morning catching up since the crash. I noticed Paul and Janice seemed close, almost like they wanted to kiss, but held back. Meanwhile, Lucy seemed unaware of their tension, which made me wonder. After lunch, I gave them a tour of the property. The last spot was The Point, a flat, clear area at the highest part of my land with an incredible view. It always took my breath away. "Why didn't you build your cabin here?" Paul asked. "The view is amazing." "Building here would ruin this place. I might put a bench near that Sitka spruce someday, but nothing else. It's perfect for meditation, I replied. Meditation? You? Lucy looked surprised. Yeah, I meditate when I can. This spot calms me, I said, smiling to show I wasn't offended. You keep surprising me, JW, she replied. Oh, look, I have cell service. I can make calls or get messages here. Don't count on it. Reception is spotty at best, I said. She looked disappointed, focusing more on cell service than the view. As we headed back, I noticed a small skiff approaching the dock. It was rare to have visitors, so I was curious. Lucy took my arm. You know, we could put a cell tower up here and get reliable service. Why would I want a cell tower messing up the view? I don't need that kind of technology here, I snapped. She looked stunned, and it wasn't until we were near the cabin that I realized she'd said, we could put in a tower. It made me rethink what kind of relationship she was imagining. The person from the skiff was walking up the trail. When they got closer, I saw it was Amber carrying 2 large salmon. Hey, JW, thought you might like some fresh salmon. Just caught these an hour ago, she said, glancing at Lucy and the others. Oh, you have company. Thanks, Amber. We could have a salmon bake if you'd like to stay, I asked, curious, since this was the first time Amber had shown up alone. That sounds good. I don't want to intrude, though. You're not intruding, Lucy cut in, taking my arm. Amber, right? I'm Lucy. This is Janice and Paul. We're just visiting for a couple of days. JW invited us. Amber stayed cool, though I caught a spark in her eyes as Lucy linked arms with me. I began to rethink my invitation, but it was too late. Amber was already inside the cabin. Lucy tightened her grip on my arm. Janice looked like she was barely holding back laughter, while Paul just smiled at me. I was starting to regret having company. Inside, Amber went straight to the sink. Got a fillet knife? I'll get these ready for baking, she said, flopping the salmon onto the counter. I handed her the knife and stepped back. Lucy, Janice, and Paul watched as Amber expertly filleted the salmon, leaving the skin and guts in one piece. Both salmon were done in just minutes. I noticed all 3 of them had a yuck look on their faces. Amber finished, and there was a brief silence before I spoke up. Amber worked at the canneries in high school. She's had a lot of practice. Lucy stared at Amber, then at me with a look I couldn't read. Janice had a similar expression, while Paul struggled not to laugh. Amber looked at me with an oddly personal gaze. The silence grew awkward. So, how about I get the grill going? Paul, can you help me? I asked. Paul nodded, and we stepped onto the back deck. The women stayed inside, talking. Looks like you've got your hands full, Paul said. Yeah, I'm not sure what to do, I admitted. Well, you have 3 choices. Go after Lucy, pursue Amber, who seems already hooked, or get on your boat and take off, he said. He nailed it. All 3 options had crossed my mind. What would you do? I asked. If I weren't into Janice, I'd go for Lucy. She's changed a lot since last summer, and you're a big part of that. But if I were you, I'd probably choose Amber. She's used to this lifestyle and seems level-headed. In other words, I'm on my own, I sighed, lighting the grill. Yep, it's up to you, partner, but you might need to act soon, he said with a knowing smile. That boat is looking pretty tempting, I muttered. Paul laughed. He was a solid guy who knew I had to work things out myself. The day had opened my eyes. I had to decide who I really needed in my life. The hard part was knowing someone would get hurt. For a moment, I seriously considered Paul's 3rd option. Could I make it to the boat without being caught? Dinner quickly turned into a verbal duel. It started with Lucy's question to Amber. So, Amber, are you planning on going to college this fall? Amber glanced up before replying. Probably not. My dad's a guide, and I'll likely join the family business, she answered with a smile. I'm sure taking some business classes could help with that, Lucy suggested, clearly probing. The University of Alaska offers online courses, and I'm already taking some. Besides, my man lives nearby, and I want to stay close, Amber replied, glancing at me. Paul and Janice exchanged amused looks, ready to laugh. It was clear both women had a common focus. Me. Getting out and seeing the world could be good for you, honey, Lucy pressed on. You might find better opportunities. Amber's gaze turned icy. I've seen the world, honey, and I know what and who I want in it. Her tone was dripping with sarcasm. Lucy kept pushing. But a girl your age could learn so much by going to a university. Why limit yourself to this small place? Amber's eyes locked onto mine. We both know we want JW. I'm not leaving just so you can swoop in. I love him just as he is. I was stunned. I hadn't expected Amber to make such a bold declaration. Janice and Paul shifted in their seats, bracing for a possible confrontation. Lucy took a deep breath. I'm closer to JW's age, and I can give him a more stable life. I do a lot for him. Amber's expression hardened. You'd probably try to change him, build a mansion here, and leave him alone while you're off filming. And you'd plan kids into a strict schedule, with nannies to raise them. Each word was like a dagger aimed at Lucy's lifestyle. Lucy's face flushed with anger. I have a career that requires planning. I make my money by being present, not hiding away in some backwoods place. Janice quickly stood and dragged Lucy outside. Paul glanced at me, the humor gone from his eyes. He silently followed them outside, leaving me alone with Amber. Amber turned to me, regret on her face. I'm sorry, JW. I didn't mean to upset her, but I had to stand my ground. I think I should go now. In that moment, everything clicked. I realized why I'd felt uneasy about Lucy. Her career would always come first, and I'd always be second. Amber, on the other hand, was ready to put me first. But she didn't know that I was already in love with her. I loved Amber. Amber got up to leave, and I followed. I pulled her into my arms, and her tears began to fall. I'm so sorry, JW, Amber sobbed, her voice breaking. I always mess things up when I'm close to you. I just love you so much. I gently kissed her on the top of her head. Go clean up. We need to talk, I said softly, guiding her toward the bathroom. Once she was inside, I stepped outside and found Lucy and Janice deep in conversation. As I approached, Janice stepped aside, sensing the tension. Lucy, we need to talk, I said quietly. Lucy nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. I know, she whispered. You and I won't work. I do love you, but I can't walk away from my career. It comes first. We should call Joe and leave today. I pulled her into a gentle hug. She kissed me softly, the kiss carrying the weight of goodbye, more like a farewell between friends than lovers. After a moment, Lucy and Janice walked away together to find Paul. As they left, I turned to see Amber standing in the doorway, looking sad and uncertain. I motioned for her to come closer. Your parents know you're here? I asked gently. Yeah, she said, nodding. I told Mom I was going fishing. It's late to go back by boat, I pointed out. Do you want to fly back with Lucy, Janice, and Paul? Amber's head snapped up, her eyes filled with fear and reluctance. No, she said hesitantly. I'd rather stay. Amber, I said, my tone soft but serious. Do you know why Lucy is leaving today? She shook her head. No. It's because we both realized that we wouldn't work out, I explained. Her eyes dropped to the ground and I could see her confusion. I took a deep breath. And I realized I loved someone else. Her eyes widened in surprise. Who? You, I said, my voice steady. I love you, Amber. Without hesitation, she leapt into my arms, covering my face in kisses. I love you, JW, she whispered, her voice filled with joy. We saw Lucy, Janice, and Paul off. There were no hard feelings, just the acceptance of what wouldn't be. After they left, I turned to Amber. Think you should call your parents and let them know where you're staying tonight? I asked, curious about how she'd handle it. Amber made the call. I heard her tell her mom she'd be spending the night with me. Her mom's response was something I'd never forget. Well, it's about damn time.